I know that my parents were big movie nuts, and I lived on a farm, and we went to the drive-in every weekend all summer. So, which was quite interesting because it was more of the experience. So they didn't. It was about the experience, not about the particular film that you would go to. So they would take us to the most wildly inappropriate films for children, like that we shouldn't be watching. Like, this was in the '60s, so it would be like really these B exploitation movies. Like there was one called Rasputin the Mad Monk. And I saw it when I was probably like 6 years old, and it was like it was so traumatic. I mean, to see the stuff that I couldn't really even comprehend, or Night of the Living Dead, or you know, films like just these kind of B horror movies. Like there was one called The Woman That Wouldn't Die, and I don't know, just really terrifying kind of films. So that was a very formative kind of cinematic experience. Freud's definition of a perversion is anything that isn't directly related to the sexual act itself, to intercourse, basically. So even according to his definition, even a kiss is a perversion because it's not directly connected to intercourse. So in that sense, I think everyone's a pervert. I mean, I don't see it as a pejorative term necessarily. I mean, there's good perverts and there's bad perverts. I mean, I guess people in general use the term pervert to mean something sexually deviant. And I do, you know, undeniably deal with sexual deviance, perversions, fetishes in my films. So it's not too hard a leap to make to call me a pervert, and I don't really care if they do, you know. But in fact, I take it as a compliment. But yeah, I mean, and I also deal with quite often with quite extreme fetishes. Like in my film Hustler White, there's somebody who fetishizes amputees and likes to be penetrated by stumps. So, but for me, that's you know, it's done. It's not enough to just show the perversion or to show the extreme sexual fetish, but the context is important too. And so I always have a kind of a romantic kind of framework around which this stuff is presented. So it's usually presenting extreme fetishes or perversions in a kind of a more kind of human way, where it's with characters who actually have feelings and are even presented visually in a kind of romantic way, which is not usually the way that most people think of those kinds of perversions. You know, Buñuel was the master of perversions. I mean, but he presented them in such a way that people, you know, I think he explained them. He kind of he dealt with these kind of unconscious images that he just basically is visualizing for people what's hidden in their unconscious, you know. So I think, yeah, that should be the function of cinema, is to not get people to stand them, but to understand them. In the hands of a great master like Pasolini or Buñuel, extreme and violent and you know, unfathomable imagery is used to make great art, but it can also be used just for purely exploitative reasons, and I don't find that very interesting, no. Well, I mean, that was the dark room. I mean, initially, I mean, that's where cinemas, porn cinemas is where all the public site of sex, where a lot of the the sex was going on, and gay sex was happening in, you know, straight porn cinemas. So I think it always had that function, and much more than it does now. I mean, now cinema is such a corporate experience, you know, it's like, everything's so kind of slick, and the movies are all expensive, big budgets. Even the movies that should be B movies, like Friday the 13th, are now mega, you know, big budget corporate entertainment. And so there's nothing furtive or kind of weird or private about, or, you know, sexual about going to movies anymore, because it's such a controlled environment, and it's, you know, it's a very kind of overproduced experience where there's no autonomy. There's no room for like being a pervert anymore, and I think that's really kind of unhealthy. I mean, if you used to go to a grindhouse where they used to make these movies like the original Last House on the Left, or, you know, the early movies of Wes Craven, or you know, the early movies like Evil Dead, and, you know, these by Sam Raimi. I mean, you'd see them. They were really super low budget, and you'd see them in a grimy old theater. So the experience of going to the theater was part of the experience of the film, which was that it was furtive, it was secret, not a lot of people knew about it. You heard by reputation that this is really violent and creepy film, but only a few people saw it, and you saw it in a very kind of appropriate environment for that kind of film. And now I think it's the fact that it's corporate and mass-produced that makes it, it's almost like selling death. It's like, you know, Soylent Green. It seems like that's what the modern entertainment industry seems like. I mean, the whole new thrust of entertainment now is the 3D technology and the digital technology and IMAX and all that kind of stuff. But I think in a way it makes cinema less mysterious and less perverse, because it's more controlled. It's more every aspect of the fantasy is like engineered for the audience. The participation becomes kind of less and less. It's like, I don't find it as perverse as it once was.